Our lesson this evening is coming from where I started several weeks ago in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, verses 1 through 11. And we had already ran through verses 1 through 5. And I just want to do a brief synopsis of verses 1 through 5. And then we'll get into the lesson in 6 through 11. But in verse 1, the writer of Ecclesiastes tells us, look, in everything there's a season, there's a purpose under the heaven. And as we discussed the other week, in everything, the problem is not what happens to us, but how we respond to what happens to us. I'm going to say that again. The problem is not what happens to us, it's how we respond to what happens to us. Now, it's bad when stuff happens to us, but you know what really takes us out of it? When we respond to it. And how we respond to it.
Where we at?
Ecclesiastes
3:1.
3:1.
3:1.
Thank you.
You're welcome, dear. So in everything there is a time, there is a season under the heaven. It's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, time to pluck up that which is planted. A time for all that. Time to live, a time to die. Believe it or not, everybody that's living gonna die. May not be tomorrow, may not be next week. Yes, sir.
Would you go back to verse 1? And,
Yes, sir.
And where it says, and a time for every purpose?
A time for every purpose.
under the heaven.
See, there's a purpose behind everything. There's no such thing as luck. There's no such thing as a coincidence. There was a purpose behind it. And we as people of God ought to be purpose driven.
So when we go through stuff, things, adverse things, there's a purpose behind that.
Even the good things, there's a purpose behind it. See, the issue is, now everything that happens to us does not necessarily come from God. See, we have an adversary, just like Job did.
We cause it too, don't we?
There are 3 things that can happen to you.
Okay.
Good, bad, or indifference. The first thing is that Satan, our adversary, goes forth as a lion, going to and fro, seeking who he can devour. Then you got the second thing that can happen to us. We can bring a lot of misery or a lot of good on ourselves. Then the third thing is some things God allows. God just allows. You go outside and have a flat tire. God allows it, because flat tires are just put on in a vehicle. You know, so we've got to understand the purpose. That way they keep us from receiving it the wrong way. How do you receive it the wrong way? Well, your loved one died and you blame God. Ain't never, and I've had some people that was members of New Salem saying, I can't never go back there again because my loved one died. What they got to do in New Salem? Well, they were a member of New Salem and they died.
And?
Yeah, exactly. And there were members of Tabernacle that died. There were members of everywhere that died. And we've got to understand, if we never understand the purpose behind something, we will repeat it. The same mistake over and over again. But once we understand there is a purpose behind it, that helps move us in a proper directions to deal with, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Everything, nothing accidentally happens to us. I don't care how many 4-leaf clovers you find, that ain't gonna help you, Lucky Charm. I don't care how many horseshoes you have hanging over your doors, one fall and hit you in the head. I don't care how many 7s you might roll shooting dice. Sooner or later, you're gonna crap out. So we got to understand, I can't do this, sis. We've got to understand everything is ordered by the Lord. He allows it. Now, everything does not come from God, but it has to go through God to get to you. Regardless of what happens, it got to go through God to get to you. How do you know that, preacher? Because of Job. Before Satan could touch Job, he had to go ask permission. So everything is ordered by God. Even a flat tire. For your tire could go flat. It's got to go through God because you belong to God. So there's a purpose. And a lot of times we're miserable because we don't want to accept the purpose. That's why we're miserable. But if we because all things work together for the good. Romans tells us that. Romans 8th chapter, verse 28, I think, tells us, maybe not 28.
8. Romans 8, 28,
all things work together for the good. If all things work together for the good and there is a purpose, why are we upset?
We don't like the purpose.
Yeah.
We go back to lack.
Yeah.
We go back to lack.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Then, like I say, there's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, time to pluck up that which is planted. And let me tell you something. Those are seasonal things that happen to us. Life is in a season. Being planted is in a season. Did you not know I was talking today in my office to myself? I had a pretty good conversation.
I said to myself, we got kicked.
I didn't talk back. At least that was a good thing. When I said it, I didn't argue with myself. 3 things you got to understand about people and circumstances. Some things and some people are permanently in your life. You count a father, a mother, and siblings. They are permanent fixtures in your life. You can't undo those. You can't undo mama, can't undo daddy. You might not like them, but you stuck like Chuck. Siblings, brothers and sisters, you can't. Then they get on your last nerve. I know Lisa do, and I'm going to tell her you said that. I know you wish they pushed June right back where it came from. Push it back, push it back. But you can't get rid of them. They are a permanent fixture in your life. Then you got other people that are transits. The other 2 group of people in your life. Did you not know some people are just seasonal?
Yes. Yeah.
They're just supposed to be in your life for a season.
Yeah, and some people are just get off at the next exit and be gone.
And we've got to know the difference between permanent folks and seasonal folks. And we try to hold on to seasonal folks, and they're only supposed to be in your life for a season. That's part of God's purpose, that you get something during that season.
You get and you give.
In that season. You plant and you pluck up in that season.
Yes.
But if you try to hold on to somebody that's just a seasonal person, you're going to hurt yourself because you missed the purpose.
And you're going to hurt them too. Because they need to move on to the next season. It's a cycle that we all go through.
And then we got people that got no business in our lives. We allow people in our lives that got no business, never was designed to be a part of our life, but we allowed them in.
And they just put themselves there.
Yeah, but you still that.
Yeah, you do.
So, this scriptures go back to say, look, it's a time and a place for all that. Then in verse 3 it says a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up. It's a time in life. And what we've got to understand is, what season of life am I in? Am I in the building season? And guess what? That season might just be for a short stay.
Yeah.
Am I in the tearing down season? Because sometimes God has to tear down some stuff in our lives.
Yeah.
We done built some attitudes. God going to tear them down. We done built some lacks, some dislikes. They got to be tore down. Pike was telling me how he ain't the same person he was 30 years ago.
Praise
Why?
the Lord.
Because some stuff got tore down.
Yes.
If stuff hadn't gotten tore down,
Sister Pike wouldn't be there.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. Pike wouldn't be there.
some stuff got to get tore down.
Yes.
So as you guys go through life, young people, you're going to build, and then some stuff got to be cut off and tore down. Because God don't need it in your life, and you don't need it in your life, because it hinders you from the true purpose that God's got for you.
So I was just thinking about this today because my life is taking some transition, and I see it. I know it. And he's moving some people out, and I knew it was just seasonal and moving me to something else. And I said to him just today, I said, okay, Lord, what do you have next for me? What is it now that you want from me? And I was just saying this today.
And that's where all of us need to be.
Yeah.
Because the simple reason, again, we love Him. Mine, mine, mine. And I'm going to take this to my grave. Well, it might take you to your grave. You better let it go.
Is that like when he's sifting? Could it be like when he starts sifting people out of here?
God will only sift if you're holding on to it. What God will do, what God will not. Now, remember, Jesus told Peter that Satan wanted to sift. The only reason God will sift is because you won't let go. God ain't got to sift what you're willing to let go, willingly. That's why we've got to watch out when we give our tithes and offering. God will not curse your money. He would just let nature do what nature does. People think if you don't give it to God, God will come and take it. God ain't got to come and take your money.
It's his anyway.
Your piece of junk gonna break down on you. Your stuff gonna go sideways. It's just gonna naturally happen. God can sit back and just say, okay. What God does when you do right by Him, that old truck that should have stopped a long time ago, keep putting right along. Keep putting right along. Should have stopped 5 years ago. It keep putting right along. That's what God does. God blesses. So it's a dangerous thing to try to rip God off when you actually
Ripping yourself off.
He says, look, time to kill, time to heal, time to build up, time to break down. Then in verse 4 it says a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, time to dance. It's a time to be rejoiced and it's a time to be sad. That's crazy, ain't it? God wants you to be sad. There's a time Jesus wept when he looked out over Jerusalem. Jesus wept when he seen how they did with his friend Lazarus had died. And then you think you ain't going to have... The old man said to me at Tabernacle years ago, one of the old deacons. He said, you ain't going to get to heaven without some knots on your head. Okay. And I looked at it and I said, what in the world? He said, you're going to go through some things, dude.
Oh, yes.
You're not getting into heaven without some knots on your head. You're going to have to suffer a little bit.
The trying of our faith.
Shall Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? No, there's a cross for all of us. And there's a cross for me.
I say that's cross for me.
That means you.
And there's a time to dance. Now see, there's a time to make merry. And I ain't talking about in the physical either. But there's a time
Boy.
to be glad and rejoice. There's a time for all that. To feel good about life. To enjoy life. There's a time for that. You ain't got to walk around like you're an 8 sour lemons all your life being a Christian. Singing, woe is me. Nobody love me. No, there is a time for a child of God to rejoice. When you think about the goodness of God and all that He has done, let the redeemed say so. Then He says a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones, time to get rid of stuff, and a time to get stuff. See, but we gotta have something God showed me last week. I'm gonna share this with you guys. I was waiting till I preached first Sunday, but I'm gonna share part of it with you now. Do you anything? God gave me a brand new terminology, a one-directional person. And you guys probably don't know what a one-directional person
Just
is.
going in one direction,
One trick
just
pony.
going in their direction,
Your mind is on
not
one thing.
direction of God.
Every time you see them, it's all about them. We're coming up with a generation of them. Every time you see them, it's all about them. One-directional individual. They don't really give a fat rat about you. It's all about them. And that's a dangerous place to be. When Jesus said, no, we're supposed to think of the things of others more than ourselves. So, look, there's a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. There is a time to throw some stuff away. Guilty me. I got pants that I can't even wear no more. They're still in the closet. I did go through there, Brother Johnson, a couple of weeks ago. I did put a little bit in bags. But how many of us got clothes that we know we ain't gonna never be a 7 no more? Can't even count to 7. But we still got them. One day I might be a 7.
I got clothes that are too big now, and I can't.
Huh? There's a time to cast away. Not only is it time to cast away stuff, there's a time to cast away people. How many people in our lives that just there?
Just occupying space,
Just riding you. That's all they do is ride you. And we sit there and let them ride. They ride you. There was a song that used to say, till they use me up, da 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 da,
keep on using.
until you use me up.
Yeah, here with us.
See, you know all of them, don't you?
I used to DJ.
There's a time to cast that stuff off and say, wait a minute.